Ahoy everybody, and welcome back to Mighty Mac on YouTube. And if I'm in front of the camera, it means that we're covering sports cars. And this weekend we are covering the 8 hours of Indianapolis for the Intercontinental GT Challenge. So we're here back on Main Street, Indiana, where we started our IMSA coverage because we're doing something a little similar, but the difference is these guys started it. So we got a lot to break down this weekend. There's a lot of interesting news and notes. Now, this is a GT3 only event, well, at least for the 8 hour itself, so we will only see the top level of GT cars racing this weekend, and we have a plethora of manufacturers to talk about. We have a plethora of teams to talk about. So let's get into it. Let's kind of break down the entry list. So this year we have 20-something cars, 22 cars on slate for us to tackle this 8 hour event. It's broken down between 7 Porsches, 5 Mercedes, 4 BMWs, 3 Ferraris, 1 Acura, and 1 Aston Martin. Doesn't necessarily have the variety that we had for the IMSA event for the GT classes, but there is definitely a lot of talent within the teams, the crews, the drivers. So let's talk about the history of this event. So the 8 hours here in the United States is not a new concept. It first started in 2017 at Laguna Seca for the California 8 hours. In 2020, it was moved here to Indianapolis. Now, 2020 was definitely a weak year for the 8 hours. It was obviously during COVID-19. A lot of the international teams were not able to make it for the race. And really the only international team that did was Vulcan Horse Racing, which is a factory BMW squad, and they completely cleaned house here, I should say, and they took a dominant 1-2 finish by over 2 laps, if I remember correctly. And that was a rain-affected race. It started in the rain, ended in beautiful sunshine. 2021 brought us the manufacturers, brought us the factory teams from Audi, from Mercedes, from Ferrari, well, BMW didn't participate that year, but brought the factory teams here, and we got a true showdown. In the end, it was Audi Sport Team WRT versus Audi Sport Team Sansalok versus Mercedes AMG Team Team Craft Bamboo, taking on well, there really wasn't much of a Porsche presence either that year, also taking on AF Corsa Ferrari, the factory Ferrari team. And it was a battle royal throughout the race, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention K-Pax Lamborghini was there. In the end, Audi Sport Team Sansalok took the win. And then fast forward to 2022, something new, something different. We ended the race at night. We ended it under temporary floodlights, under the fireworks, and it was a amazing battle between AF Corsa Ferrari and Mercedes AMG Team Craft Bamboo. The margin of victory was less than a second after 8 hours of competition. It came down to a dive bomb in turns 13 and 14 here on the road course at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and Mercedes Team Craft Bamboo took the win, and they're here this year to defend their crown from last year. So without further ado, we're going to talk about the cars, we're going to talk about some of the drivers and the teams, and kind of what to look for going into this 8 hours of Indianapolis. All right, starting off talking about the cars, here we got Team WRT, one of their 2 M4 GT3s. Here is the other one in a nice orange livery. The spotters will be very thankful. However, the number 31 here has a very BMW-esque livery on the car. The 31 driven by Augusto Farfus, Maxime Martin, and Charles Verts. And then the 30 car driven by Philip Eng, Sheldon Vanderlinde, and Dries Vantor. WRT, interesting story. Their first year as the factory BMW team. They will be running the WEC hypercars next year, the BMW M turbo hybrids. But they've been competing all year with the M4s after being a long-time Audi customer. That's going to be a topic we dive into some point this weekend, but basically the lack of support from Audi kind of dried up their options. They moved on to a manufacturer that was very much willing to take them, and here we are, Team WRT here for the 8 hours, competing all season in the IGTC, representing BMW. For them, they have raced here before. They raced here in the year 2021 with 2 Audi R8 LMSs, and they had a very successful race. They had some pretty big crashes during the race, but they bounced back. They had very solid results throughout that weekend, and now they return with the Bavarian brand. Moving on up here, we have one that our normal host, Noah, aka the camera guy this time, he's not a fan of, the KTM crossbow and its hatch opening. Now this one here is not going to be competing in the 8 hours of Indianapolis, but it is here on display here on Main Street. And then here we have one of the new 992 generation Porsches. As you can see, very, very cool livery with this one. It's not as cool as Rexy, don't get me wrong, but still. Over here we got the two DDXT entries. These will be competing in the 8 hours of Indianapolis over the weekend. This one here has factory pilot Philip Ellis on board. They used to actually both have the Quello livery on them, but this weekend they actually have a sponsor from Burton Lumber. Typical GT World Challenge America entry, however. This one here will be competing for manufacturer points for the IGTC this weekend. It is one of the reserve entries for Mercedes AMG. And here is the other car here. Brian Sellers on board, very well-known name with the IMSA GT championship there in GTD, usually with Paul Miller Racing. But again, one of the two DDXT Evos here for Mercedes AMG. Again, the Burton Lumber car is going to be the one actually scoring points for Mercedes for the IGTC Cup. Over here we have Wright Motorsports, the number 45 Porsche 992 entry. This is another one that is going to be capable of scoring points for Porsche this time for the IGTC. They need a little bit of help in the championship this year. Their two accomplishments are finishing third at Spa, finishing second at the 12 Hours of Bathurst, but they are a little bit away from championship contention. It takes them a little bit. It's going to take them a lot of good luck to get up there with BMW and Mercedes. There's some 43 points in arrears at BMW in the manufacturer standings this weekend. However, this is the biggest contingent of Porsches that we have seen at the 8 hours of Indianapolis. Previously, the high was 3. This year, they come packing 7 of these Porsche 911 GT3s. Now, they're going to be 5 of the new 992 generation like we see here, and they're going to be 2 of the older 991.2 generation GT3 RSRs. Coming over here, as we will slide through, we have the defending race winners from Craft Bamboo Racing. Last year it was a red and white livery. This year it's a little bit more colorful. And actually for them the year before that, they ran a throwback to the Moon Eyes liveries. So Craft Bamboo here with their Mercedes GT3 Evo, one of the entries for the IGTC on Saturday. They're one of the 2 primary entries capable of scoring points. Now this one here, the drivers, all factory drivers. Now one thing I didn't note before was that this year the silver requirement has been dropped. This year you can run all pro lineups, and that's what they have done. They have Raffaele Marciello, who is absolutely one of the best GT drivers on the planet right now. He put on an absolute clinic last year facing off with the AF Corsa Ferraris. Jules Gounon, who is currently the leader in the driver standings for the IGTC, and Maxi Goetz, who is really had a couple good years in DTM since they switched to the GT3 formula. As you can see them signing some autographs. Over here, another Porsche 911 GT3R. This is again the newer 992 generation. This one here, very, very noteworthy because Callum Ilott is aboard this. Yes, the IndyCar star. He did compete here 2 years ago with AF Corsa, had an unfortunate incident with a GT4 Aston Martin. Thank you. That ended their race pretty early, but this year he's looking to help out some friends who own the car and looking to bring home some points for Porsche, bring home some, oh, this one is the Wright Motorsport car, bring home some points for Porsche, bring home a trophy for some friends. Moving on up the grid. We have a car that makes very rare appearances. The Callaway Corvette, the number 70 car. It's not running the 8-hour this weekend, but this is a custom Corvette built to GT3 specifications. Again, it will not be competing in the 8-hour, but it's here. Might as well note it. Another note that we can throw out here right now is we have an old gen Audi R8 LMS GT3 Ultra. This car here raced from 2012 to 2014 in primary GT3 hands and was replaced by the current generation Audi R8 LMS that has been evo'd twice over. But this is what the first generation of GT3 cars did look like, starting really in 2009 when it started to take off as a formula and proper style. And again, this is the updated version that came out in 2012, the R8 LMS GT3 Ultra. Next up is one of the fan favorite cars. This is Group M in their first attempt here at Indianapolis. This is the Man Filter Mercedes, very well-known sponsor, very well-known car in the European circuit. They have competed for many years at the 24 Hours of the Nürburgring. However, they have brought this car here. Interesting enough, this car here was in the deep fight in the end against Sun Energy 1 at the 12 Hours of Bathurst. And a little bit of a dodgy move happened, and this car ultimately got penalized, but it made that 50 seconds up on pace, and that was all Mauro Engel. Again, this car features an all-platinum driver lineup. Lucas Stoltz, Mauro Engel, and Daniel Hunkadea, who has won on the Indy road course already less than a month ago for the IMSA Championship. He won with the WeatherTech Proton team in GTD Pro. So that experience kind of helps out. And actually, believe it or not, they said that running this event last year and winning with the same cars basically helped them win in GTD Pro. Now, how much has that carried over for this race? We shall see. But again, very, very cool to see a lot of crossover between the IMSA Championship and here for SRO. Next up, if it seems like there is a lot of Mercedes, well, knock, knock, there is. We're a little bit limited on necessarily manufacturer power, but we are not limited in terms of the quality of teams. This is the CrowdStrike APR Riley Motorsports Mercedes-AMG CrowdStrike on board. George Kurtz, the owner of CrowdStrike, and a name that we talked about before. We talked about Colin Braun racing before with Meyershank Racing. Unfortunately, that's going to be a program that's winding down at the end of the season, but Colin Braun out here once again showing that he is a multi-talented driver. He can drive a stock car, he can drive a GT car, he can drive a prototype, he can drive anything you put him in. So, and if you're wondering why this car looks familiar, well, there is a LMP2 prototype that adorns the same livery. Now then, a car that I was robbed about talking about for the IMSA event was the Ferrari 296 GT3. Now, this Ferrari 296, it is the first year of competition for the 296, and interestingly enough, this is the first Ferrari GT car that is not built by Ferrari. They are built by the Orica racing operation in France. They're the ones who have dominated LMP2. And believe it or not, this car, not this specific car, but the 296 ended the German dominance at the 24 Hours of the Nürburgring. A German team may have won it, but they are the first non-German manufacturer since 2002 to win at the 24 Hours, at the ring, the Green Hell, whatever you want to call it. This car was able to end that dominance there. So look forward to this car, the 296, is being relatively strong this weekend. Again, built by a team that usually builds prototypes. All right, so here we have the Sky Tempta Racing Ferrari 488. This is the older generation of the Ferrari GT3 car. Now, this is, interestingly enough, the only Ferrari GT3 that's registered to score points this weekend. And it's interesting that they didn't do any of the two other 296s, but manufacturers can nominate up to 4 cars. It's interesting that they only nominated this one. Now, this car here has almost won this race 2 years in a row in the hands of the factory AF Corsa team. However, this year, AF Corsa, they are focused more on their GT World Challenge Europe commitments. So we will expect 3 cars from the Prancing Horse, two of the new Ferrari 296s, and we have the single lone 488, the last generation. And this is probably the last time that we're going to see this car compete this year, or well, certainly this year, but at all. So it is a farewell for the Ferrari 488 GT3. Up next, we have TR3 Racing here. Matt Bell, one of the notable drivers in this lineup. They're racing in the Pro-Am class. This TR3, they have made some sporadic IMSA starts in the past. I believe they have ran with Lamborghini before in the IMSA Championship, but they are here with the Silver Star. Interestingly enough, there's no Lamborghinis this year. K-Pax also focusing on the GT Challenge Europe edition, and a lot of manufacturers and teams are focusing on that series this season. Now, if you're wondering what that is, it's another SRO owned entity. SRO owns quite a few different racing series. They have GT3 Australia, GT3 America, the Intercontinental GT Challenge, and also as well as Europe. So they are a very big entity in the world of sports car racing, especially endurance sports car racing. Next up, we have another Porsche 992. We have the Huber Motorsports, the number 20. So this one here is the 4th car that will be eligible to score points for Porsche in the GT3 Cup. Now, interestingly enough, Manti Racing did not make the journey over. I was expecting them to after racing at Bathurst in the Spot 24 Hours, both races that they don't normally attend. Huber Motorsports, they are a team that is a frequent flyer, I guess you could say, in the SRO. And for Porsche, they would love to get a major win in their 75th anniversary of Porsche Motorsport, as you can see on the mirrors. It has been a big program for them all year long, celebrating their 75th anniversary. That's why we saw those special liveries at Le Mans. And for Porsche, they'd like to end the year on a high, in a year that has been rather tumultuous for their various motorsport programs, especially the GT program, with the debut of this new 992 generation. Now we're going to cross the street here, and we're going to look at some more race cars, because that's what we do here, is talk about and look at race cars. That's why we're here. That's why we love what we do. While we're walking, I want to say a massive thanks to SRO for having us out and for being able to cover this event. It's an event I hype up all year long to everybody because it is that good of an event. Now then, we have Chiarzi Competizione. Now this team did compete in the Michelin Endurance, in the Michelin Endurance Championship races. Now, one thing I want to note, they put the number panel in the right place on this car. It's right below the mirrors, unlike literally every other Ferrari 296. This team here, again, we should expect to see them do more IMSA races, but their home here is in the SRO series. This one is sponsored by Jeff's Bagel Run. Very, very fun sponsor here and very patriotic livery. Great to see these guys continue, and it's great to see another 296 here on the grid. We're going to go back across the street here to our last BMW that we're going to talk about. This is Samantha Tan Racing. So Samantha Tan, a Canadian driver, she has started her own team, and she has done quite an amazing job. She has came up through the 24H series, is now a frequent flyer here in the SRO series in the various iterations. Now she has competed twice at the 24 Hours of Spa, and this is her second time here running the 8 Hours of Indianapolis. And very beautiful car, very unique livery. This one here is also slated to be able to score points for BMW in the GT Championship. She has been running Ferraris as well this year, which is a little bit interesting because she has been a stalwart for BMW. She has been a very big BMW customer advocate, and definitely show this team support because they are a little team that is starting to really go places. And Samantha Tan, she's literally right there, has done an amazing job promoting and making this dream of hers come to life. All right, so we're going to continue up the grid here. We're going to actually stay on this side to make it a little bit easier. And for those of you that watched the IMSA paddock tour, I talked about the 991 and 992 generation Porsches. Well, here they are together. We have a 991 and a 992 generation. Actually, I might need to rescind that. No, that is a 992. They are identical. But this is Grove Racing. This is one of Porsche's designated entries for the IGTC. They are here to basically just win the race and get as many points. Now, interesting enough, Earl Bamber, former factory driver for Porsche. He is no longer a factory driver, but former factory driver is in this car. He is currently a General Motors factory driver racing the number 2 Cadillac GTP in, well, hypercar in the World Endurance Championship. And you can see this beautiful artwork here on the side showing that Earl Bamber is from one of the lands down under. Don't forget, there are 2, New Zealand and Australia. Trent Eastup, Matteo Cairoli. Matteo Cairoli, another well-known Porsche driver in the number 53 car. Big sponsorship from Matul for this team. They're here. Now, this is not one of the ones that is slated to, actually, excuse me, I take that back. It is one of the teams that can also score points. Now, one thing, I don't know if I mentioned this. I don't know if I mentioned this all year, but these LED strips, nice little spotting strips for the teams to help spot their car, because again, we race into the night here. The only event in Indianapolis that does this. That's why you should come. That's the selling point, is racing into the night. And they're doing this. Now then, we'll go back across the street to the lone Aston Martin. If you are a fan of Grand American Road Racing from the early to mid 2000s, you will know the name TRG. And they are back with their Aston Martin that they have ran since 2014. They've been partnered with Aston since then. This is the only Aston Martin on the grid. And interestingly enough, Aston Martin announced today that they're going to be returning, or going to be doing their hypercar once again that they kind of gave up on back in 2020. And they will also be updating this car, as this is one of the older cars on the grid for GT3 competition. This car debuting in 2019. But we do see one example of it here this year. I don't believe we saw one last year or the year before. All right, here we have the Bimmer World BMW, the number 94, Chandler Hull, Bill Auberlin, and Robbie Foley aboard. This is a team that kind of pops up here, and they do relatively well. Last year, I believe they finished either 5th or 6th in the overall pecking order. Don't get it confused with Turner Motorsports. It's a different team. Bimmer World, they have competed in GT4. They've made the step up to GT3 competition here, and they are here. They are one of, let me double check my notes here real quick. Yes, they are one of the 4 BMWs that can score points for them in the Intercontinental GT Championship. Now then, if we come up here, I guess we got one last little note here. Whew, this has been a fun one. Klaus Bachler and the number 28 Porsche 992, the only factory Porsche driver representing the brand here this year. And on the other side, a car that looks familiar. It should look familiar because we saw this car not too long ago racing in the WeatherTech Series. This is the number 93, the only Acura on the grid for Wayne Taylor Racing, Racer's Edge Motorsport. So that was a little bit of a preview here. You can see the party's just getting started. This is something that SRO does for every single event that they host. It is a fan favorite, obviously, because everybody can get up close to the cars, they can meet the drivers, and it's going to be an exciting weekend. We are very much both looking forward to covering this. It is an event we look forward to all year, and it's such an honor to bring some coverage to you. Next time you see us will be on Saturday, where we will be talking about the race. And man, that is a lot. But thank you so much for watching this video, guys. And if you're in the Indianapolis area, come out Saturday. The race starts at 12:15. Watch these cars run into the night. Watch an 8-hour duel for every inch of position right over there. But until Saturday, I'm Kevin with Mighty Mac on YouTube, and we will see you in the next video.